Let's do some real talk about buying real estate in Roatan, Honduras. And when you use a realtor, a reputable realtor, it can go wonderful and it can go just the way you would expect it to go in the United States or Canada. We use a system that is very, very similar to like Florida. So we do use attorneys instead of title, like more on the west coast of the United States. But I wanted to personally address the for sale by owner, which here, and I know I'm pot, kettle, like I get it. I highly conflicted in this opinion. However, I want to work with people that want to work with me and see my value. If you're for sale by owner and don't want to work with me, that is 100% good and that is your right. And I think for sale by owner can be a great option, especially if you're in the industry and you worked for title, or you work for an attorney, you work for a real estate attorney, like you know all of these things, you know all the nuances, you work at the municipal, you know all of the ins and outs of the industry because you in some part work in the industry or have someone that works in the industry. I would be very hesitant if you're using advice from someone that used to be in the industry, as the industry has changed. And let me tell you, the scams that we are seeing, they are ever evolving and becoming more and more sophisticated, even with the, well, wiring fraud, that's a mess right there, and they are getting really, really good at it. Same as sending little mailers for $20 fees and whatnot. It's getting very, very sophisticated. However, I digress. For sale by owner is becoming very, very popular in Roatan, Honduras, and I think if you know what you are doing and you know Roatan, and there's two very, very important things right there, is you know what you're doing with real estate in Roatan, and you also know Roatan, Honduras. It doesn't matter what you've read, it doesn't matter how many years you've been coming here. If you are a tourist and have not really, if you have never owned a business, if you haven't done much work here, Roatan has a very steep and hard and aggressive learning curve, and it can hurt really bad when you get smacked in the face. And this is someone that's been here 15 years, and I've been clobbered more times than I can count, which is the reason why I do these videos, is to hopefully prevent you from making the litany of errors that I have usually, well, every time with my own money, and why I started doing this channel in the first place. And the original reason why I got licensed as a realtor was because I worked with a realtor that, well, provided me with fraudulent information. And so that's why I'm so aggressive and so opinionated on so many things, because I don't want other people to go through some of the hells that I went through. Now, I'm not saying you have to use me. I am saying that it would be your wisest decision you would make. However, I digress. That's the one sales pitch for the video. For sale by owner, when you are buying in Roatan, most of the risk is on the buy side. Compared to places like the United States or Canada, it's pretty even on either side. And it's just, if you go for sale by owner, that can be totally fine. Hire a real estate attorney, do it, that's fine. Things work differently in Roatan, Honduras, even though it's gonna be, I say it's very, very similar, it is not. And it's becoming very, very popular to sell for sale by owner. The demand's really there, and the fees to sell a property, they're arguably 15 to 20% of your home sale, so they are large expenses. And so the desire to do for sale by owner is very big, and that's okay if you know what you are doing. But if you are coming to Roatan for the first time, second time, 10th time, but you come for once a week, you have not experienced the long-term effects of Roatan, you haven't ran a business here, you haven't seen how the back end works, I would be very careful if you are doing the buy side. On the sell side, we can do a whole nother video on that, and the risks are just so much less than on the buy side. And that's probably one of the reasons why there's so many people that are marketing for sale by owner, just because the burden of all the risks, 90% are on the buy side. And so if you choose to do for sale by owner, selling your house, that's a whole nother video, but the risks are so much less because you are the one receiving money. You're not the one sending money. So if you are buying a house in Roatan, Honduras, and this is the most common question I get on TikTok and YouTube, is basically people asking me how to do for sale by owner. And well, I thought it was pretty obvious that I am a realtor, and well, I charge for my services that are wonderful. All right, sorry, second sales pitch there. So some things to watch for with the for sale by owner. And I'm not knocking it. If you know what you're doing, I think it's wonderful, and it's going to save you about 10%. And that's a lot of money. I mean, life is expensive. 10% is a big deal. But if you are coming to this island without that knowledge of how Roatan works, how the behind the scenes of Roatan works, there are some things that could just go wrong. And if you are sending money, even your earnest money, which is typically around 10% of the purchase price, do you know where you're sending that earnest money to? What bank account are you sending it to? Is it even a legit bank account? Is it an escrow account? My bank accounts, I'm a licensed realtor in the United States as well, and so I do have an escrow banking account. Where you're sending your money, is it actually an escrow account? I don't know. I mean, if I wasn't a realtor, I wouldn't have it. And if I didn't do property management and have to follow so many rules with property management in the state of Colorado, I wouldn't have any of those things done. But since I'm in the industry, I do. So is that money, that even that 10% earnest money, is it protective? What happens if you want to back out of the deal after you've sent money over? In my experience in Roatan, we don't really have refunds. There's no refund policy here. It's just not a thing. So it's something to think about. So even if you're in your due diligence period, your inspection period, or are you even given the right for an inspection period? Because in Roatan, all homes are sold as is, unless it specifies in the contract. Which, are you signing a Spanish contract or an English contract? Because, well, one's going to make your life much better than the next. Even and Google Translate is great, but it has its limitations. So, and the biggest part is, if you are sending money, what happens if the deal terminates? Do you know what areas to do to protect yourself? Or how are you protecting yourself? And then let's say the deal goes great and you don't have any issues in the due diligence, and assuming you're given the due diligence, because that's the other thing and why realtors are important. I know, sorry, I'm trying to limit the self-promotion. Is, so let's say you're like, you know what, this house is great, I have no issues during the inspection period, I didn't use an inspector that the seller told me to use, and I did all those things that were smart and I hired all third-party people that don't actually know the seller in theory, and they're not related or friends. There's a lot there in what I just said. So you send the money, you do it at a reputable law firm. The thing is, that law firm is going to, they are there for the transaction. They are not there supporting you. You do not have representation other than yourself. And you don't know what you don't know. and that's, there's a lot in that too. So, but let's say it all goes well. And you love the house and you're like, great, it's going to be mine. You send the entirety of the money and all of the closing cost fees and all of that. And did you buy it as an individual? Did you buy it as a corp? Did you file the right paperwork to buy it as an individual and a corp? Let's hope the attorney did, because, well, it depends what attorney you're using, I suppose. So, but are all of those things done in your best interest? Because it's not a one size fits all. One thing doesn't work for one person and works for another one. I've had properties in corporations, and I also have a property in my personal name, because each situation is different. So now let's say you did get to the closing table. You own this wonderful new house. You've sent all of your money over. Do you know the title went through? Did the title even go through? Do you actually even own this house? And that's where, and the municipal is delayed right now. They are taking 9 to 12 months to issue those titles. It's just backlogged. And even the attorney will say, oh, it's backlogged. And the thing is, that part is the truth. But was it actually done right? Was it filed right? Or did you just pay a lot of money to own a house for 2 years until those original sellers decide, oh, that title didn't actually ever go through. Well, I'm going to take my house back. So there's just a lot of things to think about, and I'm not trying to be negative and persuade you to not do it. I think if you know what you are doing, you are in the industry, and most importantly, you know Roatan and what goes behind the scenes in Roatan. It's not what you see out in front, but you know how it works behind. You'll probably be just fine. And this is what it is cheaper, but that 10%, which is a great savings, again, you could go, 10%, that's a lot of money, right? Just make sure you know exactly what you're doing and you are protecting yourself, because the risk is 90% on the buyer side, not on the seller side.